I'm pretty tired at the moment. I want to preface this next video, presentation, rant, whatever you want to call it. It was meant to be fairly spontaneous, almost improvised, and it got a little kind of, not wild, but there's a certain charge of energy which can be interpreted as emotional bias, basically being too personally involved with the message. And you can see it in my face, my expressions, movement, my eyes even going wide. And it is one of the more serious presentations, messages to the people, to the public. I thought about redoing it. I'm kind of tired now, but it doesn't have to be tonight. I want to get the message out regardless. If I redid it, I would basically listen and write down the major topics. It's because of the spontaneity and charge that comes through. It's probably a little bit more confusing than had I wrote everything down that I did speak on, because I had a few lists of speaking points, but I basically didn't really even get to them in generally consistent fashion of how I usually make these. But I want people to see the energy, the motivation. It's not supposed to be presented unprofessionally and with emotional bias. It's supposed to be from a neutral standpoint, from a neutral perspective, simply to say what it is, because it's not that I'm benefiting or relieved, realizing, receiving personal gratification from this, although that's, kind of neither here nor there, because we should be striving to produce a better situation out of what we have here, and that should be, in a way, gratifying. But it shouldn't be done in such a way that the intentions that one brings are malevolent or just in any way personal or egotistical, because that's going to detract from the message. It's going to distort the overall appearance, the overall delivery, and it's going to skewer my own perspective and filter through that. And upon reviewing it, there's really no points where this happens, but the message is a little bit, it's kind of like a trampoline or something, the way my energy goes up and down. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I wanted to get this message out. Had a long day. Actually hopped up on caffeine right now because I had to basically drive a distance. And so take a look at it. If it does seem a bit emotionally charged, keep in mind that I realize that, and I don't intend to produce, this is not really media. I'm not going to show here. This is a service. This is a public service. And so I don't intend to produce some type of personally motivated, unique to my own involvement representation for what's going on. Because I'm not. I'm representing a larger group, and through my own involvement, I'm basically backing that with my experience. And as well, there are others backing their own, and as well, there are teams behind the scenes backing what is happening here. It's really not a movement. It's a process. Your puberty was not a movement. It's just a process. And as well, it's not so much an us versus them. Everyone is working together on this. It's how it is. It's how it has to be. It's how it always was. The universe, as well, is not a war zone. It is in balance. It is in perfect balance. The balance cannot be overthrown. There is another presentation I do want to do off of these topics that I discussed or present, because it's pretty confusing. It has to do with the energy system, reincarnation, soul trap, or whether this is a type of holographic, in a way mechanized prison system, and as well that regardless of what that is, the ancients told us, and will continue to represent that we hold the pathway out within, and it is through the navigating of the higher and lower spheres, layers of your existence, and transcending the dualized form, which is just a repetitious cycle and of knowing or not knowing, until we finally, begin to create our own knowing by reducing the ability to be distracted from, desires and unexpected turns and all the things that basically throw us for a loop in reality. And ultimately that's by overcoming the animalistic qualities of the being, the physical being. And in that sense, that will either overcome these lower qualities, desires, instincts, or they will overcome us. And so that's the gist of it. That's as far as it goes. It is complicated as far as what has happened since the beginning of this whole situation. But it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And it can't be less than that, because everyone has that as a challenge and a responsibility and a duty. And that is the fundamental responsibility we all have to acknowledge, to observe, and to basically call out the situation for what it is. Beyond anything more than that, it's not really what we're looking at here. We're not the ones that will handle heavy operations. We're not the ones that are going to do that. All we have to do is make it known that we are applying our free will from this side of the situation to move away from those lower desires, to move away from having our free will basically manipulated through these psychological games, and that we choose liberation, we live by it, and commit to it. And in that sense, basically, excuse me for saying, there's like a 20-word strip of words that I repeat because I have so many gaps in the way I speak. I'm working on this. But we have to, as a species, as a society, overcome what's been plaguing us. And it's a lot of it is just violence. It's violence against ourselves and one another, and disrespect. And that's just lower awareness, lack of self-awareness. And until we overcome that, nothing is going to change, because that's the way the system works. That's the way things have been used against us. These schemas, these kind of like social systems and games. And as well, if there is an underlying cause or purpose, it is to overcome. There's always a purpose. There's always some larger plan. That larger plan is for us to overcome. And in that sense, though, what I want to add with this is that everyone's working together on this. It's not an us versus anyone thing. We're not the ones handling that part of the situation. We're not running operations from this side. That's not how it works. So no one's going to really run up anywhere and do anything. It's that we're withdrawing from the system in a non-violent, basically, fallacious, I think. We can't deceive ourselves. We can't say we don't want to have violence and oppression and deception placed upon us and then support bombing other people or any of that. We can't support any of that. It is not possible. Okay, so just to wrap this quick 10-minute preface up, if we continue to support the system, we're going to be the ones that are next. It's as simple as that. That's how the game is played. It's a karma game, and it doesn't exist. But if we play it, it's like an arcade. Those points don't exist, right? You play it, you win, you go get a whatever, stuffed animal, basketball, slinky or something. Alright, well, if you play it, and you're trying to get one of those things because that's what you really want, you put your energy into it, and the game is rigged, and you don't know that, guess what? You're not going to get anything. You're going to walk away empty-handed. And in this situation, it's going to be a lot worse than, not having a toy or something like that. It's going to be the removal of the infrastructure. So we have to stop supporting that. And the only way we can do that is to spread information. Okay, if you go around and you yell at everybody, it's not really going to do anything. Millions of people use the system that we're using right now to communicate. Millions upon, billions of people use this. That's how it's done. That's how it's going to be done. That's how it's done. And word of mouth. Everyone interacts with someone. You're trying to tell me this is not important enough to tell someone around you. Hopefully, maybe not tell your boss unless you have, something to back it up, something substantial so you don't look like a whatever. But I mean, just even the fact that you look like something abnormal because of this information, that's not going to help anyone. That's not going to fly. But still, maybe wait for your boss last. But everyone else, you see people every day. That's how it's going to be done. That and the online network, the networking through the whole internet infrastructure. That's the way. All right. Here's the video. This is going to be a mismatch. This is going to be a mixed match of topics. I'm getting to the point where there are so many things that I have lined up to talk about that I don't know where to start. And I know I've said a lot already, and I've written more. All of this is written on the blog and in various files, and it's just it's difficult to begin to describe. It always is. Excuse the ums. I'm pretty much intentionally gonna have a mixed group of topics, because things are getting kind of weird anyway, so it's just what it is. There's a lot of stuff coming out. It's gonna continue to come out, and people have to look towards it and add it into it and acknowledge it, because that's basically how it works. Maybe I can start there. One aspect of people who are involved coming forward is, in a way, it's almost like condemnation, because everything that happens is done legally. Now that sounds strange, but what does legal mean? It means people do stuff and there's reasons and it's written down. It's the same as the old world religion, where it was towards a law according to rituals and passed down of power and knowledge, and how things were controlled that way, under the guise. It's just, anyway. So what it really means here is that if something is done legally, it means it's a part of the system that you're living within, and in that sense you're accepting, and ultimately it comes down to, even if people don't write the laws themselves, if it's a part of this system that we're all communally, I gotta fix the audio, communally working for, then it means that it's free will. That we can't claim that whatever happened according to this legal system is not what we wanted, is not what we accepted and acknowledged. If it's legally bound, even if it means nothing, if it's just some stuff some people wrote and it has nothing to do with the people, if the people accept that system, then it means they accept what is being done by those people through that system. It is not about, that's the real reason, it's not about there's some, dimensional group that's going to come and say you broke the law, now we got you. It's about getting people to accept, and therefore it's their free will, and the law is free will. If they if people don't accept and they say what they want, and they basically say, we reject that system, then they don't have the right, and maybe then there's some interdimensional group, or maybe then there's just some way that it won't work, that it, in some level, the way that minds are wiped and energy is transferred through, and people leave this plane, or come here, leave this plane, and have to come back because of this entanglement, some part of that would be broken without the free will aspect. With it happening legally, it's not that they're not going to get in trouble, it's the fact that they can get away with it, that in the sense that they can actually do it, that we won't be able to stop, because it kind of has to do with the consciousness in the mind. If you imagine we, in a way, from the other side, don't have a direct connection of memory of who we are here, consciousness, then if the way we see it then is that it's all written out and we're all accepting it and going along with it. We wouldn't really have the power to break through that barrier between this side and the other side of, life and put a stop to this. But if we look back and it looks like we're obviously aware of what's going on and we're trying to put an end to it, then it's obvious. It would look like a war. It would look like an oppression system. It would look like an abridging of free will. If we're just lollygagging around and the majority of people don't care, don't give a damn, and it is what it is. It looks like people are asleep. They might not like it, but it looks like they're accepting it, and so then nothing can be done. So that's the main thing behind that the legal system is literally the basis for a spiritual enslavement system. And this goes into the legal fiction and the legal name, which is basically a fraudulent system where it's illegal. It's a federal crime to use a legal name to the point where if a person uses that and identifies through their identification system, Social Security, all of that, they are then subject to basically disciplinary action by the state, and they have all their rights revoked. It's like a prisoner. You have no rights. Same thing that happens if somebody goes to prison. They basically don't, if they accept anything, sign anything, say anything that's incriminating in that sense of identifying with that system, then their rights as a human are revoked and they become an asset of the state. And that's by definition the fundamental basis is what a birth certificate is what an ID is that's how it all works. A person becomes an asset as soon as that happens, and it's from 13, when the Federal Reserve took over after bankrupting the system. And the people that bankrupted the system through having a lot of the stocks, selling them off cheap, causing a flurry, and then using manipulation of society through rumors of the war and stuff like that. If that was that, there might be two different times. I think it was the same one though, and basically causing a frenzy in the stocks, and people sold because the prices are going down, and because they were selling it and flooding the market with the commodity, so the prices are going to drop. So everybody knew, they thought, it's not going to go back up again, or at least they're not going to sit there and say, well, I'm going to sit here and wait for 2 years in case it comes back up. They had to sell themselves to all these little people, and then all you have is these billionaires and the same commodities in the overall stocks that are now down to pennies, if that, and they bought everything back, and they then owned the wealth, and because that is used to control the economy, they owned America, and they bought out the monetary system and stamped it with the Federal Reserve. That was how they did it. They stole it. The people that did that came and told me, we stole your world. Well, we didn't get lucky, we didn't roll it, and it's like, we got it. We stole your world. That's how we did it. And I'm also like, you didn't, sometimes I'm like, go F you, blah, blah, something, they were negotiations. You don't want to, anyway. So, certain times I was like, or I would respond with that type of information with, you just did what you had to do. You want money, power, you did what you did. It's not a crime, it's not a thievery aspect. And I was, trying to build a connection, and they're like, no, F that idea. We are the thieves. We stole your world. Give us our credit. We are in a way, monsters, but not that word more so, but more like I can't think of the words that they would use right there. But we're like the bandits that took your stuff. Don't try and play it off and sugarcoat it. We don't need sugar anymore. We already got away with it. So that's what happened. So that's the type of stuff that went on. And they converted the system into a more or less a slavery system. Of course, I go off on these tangents, and that's how these talks basically evolve. I never really go according to the script, but that's what it is. And this is one of the topics that I wanted to begin to talk about, along with basically these time situations and some of the operations that have to do with that, which we see these effects coming around now. Some of the disclosure that's coming out between people of all angles and backgrounds about the corruption and the schemes that are used in these cult societies, and the way they follow religion and all the stuff that's going on. Oh, interesting. And there's information coming out everywhere now, and then some other things about just certain things about how the situation is working, and this is kind of like where I'm going now, and there's plenty of other topics as well, but I haven't talked about these things, and they are primary aspects of what is happening, basically, until that system is dealt with, as well as until these other aspects, these issues, operations are understood and acknowledged. Things really won't be able to progress after that. Remember the three phases that I've described from, starting with the corruption and advanced technology, mainly cloning, genetic harvesting, tax farming as part of what they call themselves, basically the destruction of the flesh, all of that stuff. That's basically phase one, the corruption. And the way our system is corrupt, it's based upon corruption. It's not like, well, we kind of did this and we got lucky and BS'd you a little bit and did that. It's designed to steal life from people, to rip it out from under their feet. And it's based on deceit and deception. And as well, the way it... That's really annoying. The way it works is through blackmail and corruption. That's how the members are kept in control, and it's not optional. It's mandatory. It's not optional. The person doesn't get in. They don't know the secrets. They don't get the power unless they participate. And so, as well, the legal name system, it's based upon that. It goes back to Babylon. It was used in different ways. It was a religion back then. The science, the sociology, the religion, it was all one system, which was basically their religion. It's the easiest way to describe it. Meaning the people they looked up to, the what you could call the rulers, the politicians, the celebrities, the basically movers and shakers, those were all one class. It was basically these religious masters, priest kings that knew everything and had all the power and were the figureheads and the military head and the spiritual leaders, and it was all in one. And so that broke down into what we have today. It extended, and the way it works is basically people have to be categorized because they see this situation in the society as it's basically a part of a quota system where they have to produce energy for some system that is above us, that we're kind of within. And the way they do that is through getting people to enact and believe in the systems that they are presented with, which they design, and these systems carry symbolism that relates to basic subconscious desires, tendencies, habits, like developments, and when these are followed by masses of people for periods of time, these basically emit frequencies, and our entire species, then connected to this morphogenic field, it strengthens and shapes these fields, these frequencies, and they're doing this to basically empower themselves because they're building a kind of blueprint, a map, which keeps everything going to the point where it becomes a kind of soul labyrinth if people try to leave, or if they try to evolve out, or progress out spiritually. Basically, all the loose ends, all the variables or options that a person could take at that point, if they're paying into that system by mind and energy and body, it becomes basically like second nature to not basically be organically present, in the sense that they choose their own pathway through life. They have their own creativity and critical thinking, and ultimately free will. So more or less that system, it turns people into slaves. And it's basically by plugging their mind into a, media-driven, biophysical, mental, emotional, psychological, subconscious construct that they've designed very carefully, like reverse engineered, and then they present people with just like the doorways that they, or the images, the window type stuff, like window shopping. And as we go through life, if we play into it, it slowly more or less involves us, entangles us mentally with those fields. And the point is, they did this, and it now they invented the afterlife through that. It started in Egypt, and all you have to do is tell people this is going to happen, this is what you want to do, this is where it's going to lead you to, and all that, and that's what's going to be. Now, if that's based upon these basic this knowledge of psychological fulfillment and harmonization between the aspects of ourselves into, our self, our physical and emotional and mental, into this type of congruent system, and that is, in a way beneficial in increasing self-awareness and respecting free will and liberation of the lower, self, by basically appropriating and prioritizing the desires, the your imagination and your what is that which you require for psychological fulfillment. Basically, knowledge, imagination, desires, and then it's not really with Maslow's pyramid hierarchy. That's an old concept, but it helps to a degree. And so basically, consciousness is entangled in a lower spectrum of experiences, which is the physical plane. And for this to lead anywhere, it has to be liberated from the ever-repeating cycles of forgetfulness and attachment to desire, and these habits that result basically just from being alive. And they're rooted in desire and fear and ignorance, basically, low self-awareness. It basically, the person is either an automaton, if they just allow that to happen, and then the brain is just taken over. That's all it means. Or the person is working towards liberation, and they're moving out of just being basically like a mortal plaything for the system, and it moves into true free will and awareness, and that's basically soul awareness. And so the system is designed to hold people back, but if it's based on, I think the original ones were based upon realizing the trap of lower awareness and getting out. Somewhere along the line, they say power transferred. There was a contract between star races, and the whole idea with that is that it's, in my humble opinion, energetic, holographic, multi-dimensional existence versus like space and void and different times and things like that. It's all temporal dimensional. It's not the solid version that people want us to think. For instance, and there's also a deception. The two sides are split. I'm not mentioning it, but flat Earth and round Earth. Okay, well, he said we went to the moon, blah, 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 therefore he's BS disinfo right there. Not talking about me or anything, but I've heard this said. Well, because you're a flat earther, right? And all the 12 tribes of Israel and sun, moon, blah, blah, right? And Bible, devil. All right, well, the moon and the sun are supposed to be in the firmament. So right there, that doesn't make sense if that you say, we can't go to the moon because it's flat and there's in a dome. Well, all of that stuff is in the firmament, though, or at least not the planets that are out, trans-Neptunian and all that stuff, but the sun and the moon are supposed to be in the firmament along with the stars. So a lot of people don't even know what they're talking about when they're just, and that's the point, that it's just get them to fight each other. And it's really interesting stuff because something is going on, obviously. The point is, it's frequencies of consciousness and mind, and it's temporal. It's like trans-temporal, multidimensional. Either way, so previously, the first rulers of civilization, where they kind of know what they're doing, and they're telling you, think this way, feel that way, knowing that's going to lead into a certain non-physical shell of energy that is the afterlife. And it could have been, they knew it was a kind of lower awareness was a type of trap system, and they knew how to rise out of it. Somewhere along the line, there was a contract between races of non-terrestrials, which in my mind is literally just people that were here, that more or less ascended to the four-dimensional level of accessing time-space through either technology or whatever it was, and basically came back to enact the same type of ascension principles, but ascension is corrupted, and all that stuff is like controlled, media-controlled words and stuff like that, like agendas. But when that happens normally, it's like, okay, it's us, in a way, trying to help us out. Something happened, and somehow the people in power decided to say, F it, F the whole system, whatever it is, just shove it somewhere. We're going to be as bad as we can, help basically only our specific select crew from, to navigate out of this place. And even then, the majority of people that we come in contact with are going to be stuck and trapped here, and we're going to trade their souls. They turned what is supposed to be possibly a way of getting out into a soul trading, system. And now the point is, because there's also a discrepancy between, and this is all connected, by the way, the legal system and all that, they don't look at it like name, they look at it like soul, this how many souls did you get this year? And money is the basis for that. They don't, not like, well, how much money can we get? No, it's like, how much can you convince them it's about money so that they walk into our traps and we get their souls? Because they don't need money for what they do. Again, there's a little bit of a discrepancy against whether the original system was like a school and we're meant to experience these things and rise out of these trap systems, or whether the whole thing is a trap to begin with and there is no way to look at it positively because it was born out of an illusion from a fallen god who mimicked the original planes and basically dropped down into frequency and just trapped a bunch of souls from whatever higher plane that everyone existed at or in, and created this world out of that process of literally basically like gangsters stealing souls from the higher dimensions and creating what is, appears to be a playpen, and it's a jail, it's a prison, under the guise of like a preschool or something. And so there's two ways to look at it. And if it is a school, well, guess what? Now, even if it is a school, it's being made into a prison with advanced technology and the way they're controlling people's minds. And so, even then all that means is that we have to convert it back into a school, or it's a school where it's basically like a military academy, or it turned into a prison right now, and the school is either burning down or overrun by gangs, because whichever way you look at it, right now it's not how it should be, but it's not something organic, to put it that way. And it's because the mind creates these levels, and so people's minds have been used to create these artificial levels, which are founded in these symbols and these belief-created gods that are invented as part of these systems. These rulers manage and create and basically use for possession and things like that, and power and war and so if it is a school, then you could look at it, it's almost like the same thing, once again, because you could say, well, right now it's not a school, or excuse me, if it is a prison, then, like, even then, if it was a school, you could also say that, regardless if somebody was doing something purposely, it's that we're just simply in cycles of higher and low awareness, and it'll, come back around again. If it is a prison, then, in the beginning, you could say that they knew what was going on, and there was a movement to navigate out of this prison network, but that then maybe the people who were in control of that got targeted and infiltrated by these entities, which you can call them archons, whatever. It's the part of a person's mind that looks at what's happening in the world and doesn't realize that there's a lack of self-awareness, and that if they don't discern between how they're living in their own life and how that relates to that lack of self-awareness, or how it basically begins to cause a increase of self-awareness into what we term an awakening, then basically that's part of this type of sleeper system that is within every sentient being here, that the potential for it is that is more or less eating this world. Because if a person stays asleep and lives that way in their life, there's not going to be a big void that just everything dissolves. There's no experience. That's not how it began, so that's not how it's going to end. Oh, but I can't, when I was born, I didn't. Yes, you did, you just don't remember. Go to a certain place and they'll teach you how to remember. It doesn't mean just because you don't know, there's nothing there. And as well, say, what does happen as far as they exist afterwards, but they didn't show themselves, okay, the soul didn't show themselves in the body, then the body it's proven, if you will, it's projected after that it's just like a puppet, and the individual, the personality, the person that thinks like, well, I don't have to worry about that stuff, it's all just BS, blah, blah, blah. They basically unfold and unravel, and it's just like a 2D paper sheet, like a cartoon, whereas the soul is actually a higher dimensional, multi-dimensional, extra-dimensional being. And so it's the difference between expanding beyond this plane, or unraveling and being shown to just be like a piece of paper that some higher being was manipulating by drawing lines on and codes on. We do that here, now, in the moment, in the way all the BS out there comes down to the point of our awareness in how our priorities and willpower is navigated or integrated into everyday existence regarding the financial system, the legal system that I just described, more or less the religious and spiritual control systems, the media, our emotional experiences and relationships with friends and family and loved ones, our health, how we treat our body. Everything carries a frequency and a signature. If everything amalgamates and accretes or accumulates and adds up to a single frequency. That's how our DNA works, with tons of experiences. Then it all comes down to one moment, one being, and that's who you are. If all of every time we do anything, we have a choice of how we want to do it. Every day, basically, you say you have a choice, and every moment of every day you have a choice. If you spend more choices of your free will, giving your free will away, letting other things control and decide for you, then if that amounts to a lack of free will, or a less than you choosing, making you less than 50% of you using your choices to use your free will, then at the end it's like there was nobody ever there in the beginning to begin with. And it's the strangest thing, the way to describe that, but that's what happens. This is the undoing of a civilization and a soul, or the eternalization and everlasting proof of a soul. And it's the strangest thing, but that's what this place is. And I've kind of just narrowed down whether it's a school or a prison or a trial, whatever it is. It's the fact that you can use your free will, and you prove yourself not immortal but everlasting. Immortal in a way. Immortal is a dimensional immortality. Everlasting is multidimensional, meaning you can leave the universe, because the universe is limited, because it's based upon variables and linearity, physicality, or at least this plane, the physical plane. I mean, because that's what we call the universe. When they say like the universe and stars and the void and space, we can see, okay, that's just a physical plane. There's planes that you can't see. And so it could be something that enables you to move beyond that, or through just not applying one's self, it could be the experience that undoes that potential, and the person does not exist in the higher planes or in any plane basically ever again. And there's no death, because then if that was true, it just means that person never existed in the first place. That there was no soul that came here to experience those things, because it is not what a soul does. It's like saying a computer program that you design to do certain things, and every time you run it, 99 out of 100 or 900 out of 1,000 lines of code or functions completely don't even work, don't do anything. Okay, that's not a program. That's just bunches of numbers and codes. The only way that works in this society is because everything's done for us. All you have to do is show up a certain place, do some mindless stuff, agree, and just nod your head, no, and just agree, and that's, you're alive, you get a spot in society. No. At the end of that, if it proves that that's not a person, that's not what they do, it means that that's the undoing of a soul. And so, in the same sense, I'm kind of going on an extreme tangent here compared to what I got written the topics that I got in the Expanse, because I was just going to do a mixed bag. I told you this is the tame version, but the idea is that if a person sees this in their life and basically sacrifices all of that BS and all the pleasure they could have from just going along with it, and fights literally to awaken, to stand up for the truth, to unveil and stand up for what they believe in, and basically have to apply their free will to do that, because as soon as you go against the grain, it pushes you back. And so the longer a person's been going with the grain, then the harder it's going to be to go against the grain for them and their own personal energy and system. And so that's what it is. But if they do that with all the suffering that it entails, then basically that sacrifice, the greater that sacrifice is, it's just the pleasure of not caring. That's all it is. You don't have to be a martyr. That's an agenda trick. But if a person does that, then that pain, that suffering, it shocks a person awake. It brings the soul into awareness. There are artificial versions of this, like agendas and things like that, where people whip themselves or go into disciplining and self-denial and things like that. And these are based in the ideas of producing the higher free will by negating what the automatic body and the desires and the programming of the brain and the subconscious that's been laden with all this stuff basically wants to do, which is carry out the same programming. But it's a distraction if it's just the ritual or just the idea of going through it. It has to be rooted in true self-awareness, and in that sense, basically not doing it for anything, not doing it for image, not doing it for money or because other people do it or for a social cause. It can't be done for anything that's a part of this world in a way that you're connected to this world. It has to be done for the only part of you that's not connected to the world, which is simply the observer. The you that knows but can't interact directly, that can't explain, that can't be described through words. So how do you finalize that? How do you, categorize that? Well, that's the whole point. You can't. It's, put it this way, one of the easiest ways to begin talking about this, and this is like the part of the tangent where it's basically indescribable, one of the easier ways to begin doing this is that whenever, okay, so you got to find your free will or unveil it to pass the test or whatever. Go do it. Now, the first 5 or 3 things, whatever it is that you choose, okay, it's the opposite of that. It's something that you can't even imagine because the first thing you thought, that's the point. That's what you think. That's what your mind wants you to think. That's what you've been grown to think. You've been conditioned to believe. So you basically is about negating yourself, but mentally, until you stop going back and forth between the ideals, the belief systems, and all that. And imagine if you go with the first thing that you're conditioned to believe, and you do that over and over again, you end up with like a religious system where it's like you have to do these things over and over in a certain way, and it's going to give you this reward or whatever it is. And there's no real connection to that with any true internal power. It's like practicing to be the best everyone else, the best you can every day. And that's what a lot of these systems are. And they're parading like the consciousness or free will inducing systems, but it's a belief system where it entangles people up and they end up becoming a part of that group, and it's kind of like a cult. And honestly, everything in society is a cult. Society is one of the main things from the projects. Society is a cult. People see people doing things. They don't know why. They are reasons for it that don't actually have anything to do with the true reasons or the meaning of the person being present in that place or time. Superficial materialism, basically like trends and things like that. And then everyone does it. And if you go against it, it's like, oh, boo, yeah, we hate you. That's a cult. That's cult mentality. That's all it is. It's a herd mentality and it's a cult. And so, excuse the the whole point of that is that has to be undone. A person has to be or deprogrammed, and once that begins, the fear, the greed, the desire, the tendencies to basically not have the ability to have faith in yourself, the doubt sets in, because people are conditioned to live and think like herd animals and lose that critical thinking aspect. And this all goes down to the system. This is how the system is worked, created, designed intentionally to create it's an enslavement system, but it's a belief system based enslavement system where the people interact and engage emotionally through their beliefs and intentions for certain ideals, and this creates basically these pseudo afterlife realms where more or less they're trapped and then they have to come back, because the truth is that it has nothing to do with basically becoming different or doing something new or anything like that. It's the fact that who you are really, beyond the personality, beyond the mind and the like the lower dimensional stuff, the consciousness, the title and identity, the personal existence and the memories that are basically more or less selective, who you are beyond that, the actuality of you, doesn't change when you go into another plane, when you go into the plane of mind or spirit. It's literally the same exact guy. It's the same person, same stuff, probably wearing the same clothes. It's not like some spooky or mystical. No, it's literally exactly the same. That's the big secret. That it's literally you that go there, and so it's you that has to be able to navigate and go through these realms and experience the things, because the idea is on the realms outside of this plane, which is anchored physically and collectively, meaning changes are not going to be as drastic, and the mind is not going to be able to go off like you're daydreaming all the time, if you're awake. Like being in a daydream and how variance the experience can be, and then somebody wakes you up, you're in class or something, maybe bad analogy. Like think of now, imagine trying to go back into the dream state and feel you can't because you're in a collective reality. So the point is, when we leave that, we go into a highly subjective, almost like an adventure, and everything we impact, connect with, influence mentally, it makes the plane. It branches off this way into that story, fairy tale, or it branches off this way into that one, or whatever way we're going to go. So the idea is we have to be perfectly neutralized, because it's going to try and pull us in either or direction and get a lean on the trajectory. And in a way, you can say we're trying to go up in a sense. And if we're imbalanced in any sense to the point where what we want to believe is not from our heart, if you will, and which would be centered, and then if it's from the mind, being more or less having a tendency, a habit, a program that is based upon duality to go from one or the other to fear, or one or the other to pleasure, and what you just want to believe in because that's what you want to believe in is basically conditioning. It's almost as if you're going up and then it bends and you end up going right back down. The only way to actually do it is to be perfectly balanced and neutral, and one of these options or a vision or these out of body, like demons or angels or whatever it is, these experiences, whatever one it is, it's neither is real. It's literally the only thing that's real is your experience in that place and in this place. Although we're in a collective reality, so of course, you can't like jump out of a window and be like, it's not real, it doesn't matter. No, eventually it won't, because whether you walk away and 30 years later you pass on or whatever it is, or you pass on right there, you're going to go to the same place. So guess what? This place, and according to that place, is the same not realness. It's like a collective physical dream. But once you get into in the same sense, if somebody comes to you and says, here, buy this idea or go with that, and you're afraid, you got to do this way, or you like this, it's based upon pleasure, that's who you are and you want this. Both of those are not real. That's the whole point. In any way, in any plane, the heart, which is not moved by duality, by oppression, by tendencies and habits and programming and desire, basically desires and fears, that's what's real. If it's motivated by desires or fears, or social imprinting, or basically something external telling you it's not real. But the point is, it could be happening, but the you that goes on to believe, this is what I want in life, this is what I'm doing, I'm enjoying, this is what I'm feeling. It's not like your enjoyment isn't real, but eventually it's short-lived if it's not based upon what you really want and what you really know. But the point is, the you that's feeling that is not real. It's a character, it's a mask you put on. It's like a eternal Halloween. Every Halloween, people put on masks and things like that. They know it's not really who they are. But imagine for a year or for a party or whatever it is, or for a time on Earth, people put on the mask and they forget that's not who they are. And that's the whole point. If we actually think that's who we are when we try to leave, we reappropriate our energies, our mind, with that world, that projection system, and people can't leave. And that's basically the gist of the situation. I explained it in a very weird way, but I know I have interesting followers, and followers isn't a good word. I have interesting listeners and viewers. And whatnot, because I know a lot of people are going to get it. A lot of people are going to be like, why would you explain it that way, or what does this even mean? But the point is, that's the gist of it, how we're in this place, and the situation, the problem is, we're wearing these temporary masks of personality from an eternal soul, or at least an immortal soul that leads to an eternal, higher dimensional, observer sense or self-awareness, and it got so bad in this 1,000-year Halloween party, whatever civilization is, that everyone forgot we're at a party wearing masks. And they're literally all parading around like this is the real thing. Like everything you would do at a Halloween party or something like that is what you do daily, every day, waking up to bed, for work, out of work, party, whatever, for your life. That's the gist of the situation. It's insanity. It's a cosmic insanity. And it relates to the parasitic infection, you could call it, and all of that, and it really relates, when you look at it just the way I've said it, that it's just a mind and ego getting out of balance and out of whack to the point where we're trying to become something we're not, and on a cosmic scale it's undoing us, and it's wiping our memory over and over again. Beyond the interdimensional realms of electrograded craft and absorbing people's consciousness into these other states, and if somebody's actually doing that, or even if not people doing this in factions, but if other entities, or if it's just like the way rain and atmosphere cycles up around the system. I can't remember. There's a cycle that's called moisture cycle or something like that. Excuse me. And so maybe that's just how the accretion energy of consciousness and electromagnetic emissions from the brain and body and what we call the soul cycles and does the same thing. Regardless of whether other beings are doing it or other factions are actually keeping people's souls here or doing things with the moon and recycling. In the moment, in here, it's a system that convinces us that we are the masks, and also convinces us to create masks that have nothing, that basically have the least likelihood of connecting to our actual self. And although it's a kind of misnomer, because no mask has any likelihood of connecting with your actual self, whether you're dressed up as a boogeyman or dressed up as a block of wood or something, neither of it is related to you. Although in symbolism there could be, that's kind of just pushing it and getting down to the details, to the unnecessary details. Although they still count, but the idea is that that's basically what's happening, and it relates to, when you look at it that way, the Gnostic understanding of the demiurge and the original awareness and Sophia, and how it is basically connected to a very organic system, even though within that system there is an inorganic kind of basically like a shadow consciousness that developed from a continual rejection of our more or less our unawareness, to the point where then we became under the control of our unawareness, our lack of awareness, our fears and ignorance, rather than being in control of our fantasies and imaginations and desires and things like that. That's all it means, is that you have stuff, and then you have other things, and they branch out from the original part, and we decide where we go from there. Well, we became so lost and entangled with where we were choosing to go that eventually we're no longer choosing anymore, and we're kind of like stuck running around in these circles, not getting back to that source where we're in control and realizing that there's a plan, there's an original motion and a completion cycle of everything, of existence, of our consciousness, of our lives, of the soul, of the universe, of everything, of creation, of time, of history, and we're just in these loops endlessly running around, and people are losing energy and forgetting themselves. It's very organic if you look at it that way, without tying in the fact that they developed these systems, and that they're probably, or possibly, I mean, I've seen it, but, you know, are they covering up for a natural system so they can say we're the ones that are kidnapping souls and doing that? And, you know, are they covering up a system where that's just naturally what happens when people are that dense, basically, literally dense, to the point where their consciousness is entangled with energies or concepts that are more related to physicality and cannot be experienced in the other realm without creating an attraction for the physical realm again. Which is to cover, I don't know, but they do have the craft that can do it. The craft, the electrogravitic, and they do have the big soul magnets that can do it. And unless they put these stories back in time, which they did put stuff back in time, there are stories of these soul magnets and these grids and, you know, wheels, the cosmic or heavenly wheels, and the barrier, the grid between inner and outer space, and all that stuff. It's all been talked about. It's all been done before. The question is whether we're going to be... I've been ranting here for a minute, but I'm about to finish this. The question is whether we're going to be exiting this system, this infinite reincarnation trap system where our energy comes, we experience, we see, we do, we go, and then we come back, and we don't remember a damn thing. You know, if we get better and better as we do that, good. If society is actually degrading, getting worse and worse, and our memories are getting worse and worse, and the likelihood that we'll make it out is getting worse and worse, then it's a trap system. And if we go that way, we're going to turn back into dust. We're going to, and from, you know, dust to dust, blah, blah, blah. That's what it's describing then, if that's what's going on. And it's something that's feeding on people through that. So, you know, there's some things to think about. I basically ranted. I've been low on sleep for a couple days from a few distractions and things, and I have an event today that I have to go to, and then there's a few shows lined up, or even just like chats with friendly people along the same lines, and there's a couple breaks in this between basically discussing these certain dark things, and this wasn't really too dark. This is just about, you know, examining the possibilities and consciousness, and the basis for consciousness as a kind of possibly an illusion of these lower energetic realms where you don't have free will. It's just a program with the brain. And then the basis for basically self-awareness, or higher awareness even, but more so just self-awareness, where there are programs, there are subconscious automations, but you are in control of which ones run and whether they run at all. Here's an easy way to look at that. In this system, in this social system, the only choice you have, and this is look the quote up. There's a girl, I can't remember. She was a girl, I guess I said lady, now, that began to talk about anarchy in certain ways years ago, and it was one of the earliest documentary style videos of somebody speaking more or less from the heart and the mind about the system, and how it's more or less this is a game, but it's a game that you can't win. That's the idea. That's not a game. But in that, I'll maybe put her link up there. I'll link to the videos. The only choice in the system, and this is also how duality works. That's the whole point. It's as if they're trying to show us how this works, that it's a trap, by putting it as blatantly in our faces as possible. And this does relate to the original contract between who had right to own and how now there's no longer that right, and we have the right to reject that system and say it's done. You don't have this. There's nothing. You go, like, literally leave us alone. But as well, we have to be sure we know what we're doing, because people at this point have been programmed to say, yeah, it's done. I don't want to be a slave. Okay, but do you have any food? Maybe some burgers and fries, stuff like that. You got any TV? Like, they're addicted to this stuff. They want the shoes, the clothes, the music, all that stuff. They want it. So it's like they're trading. So it's like they took the handcuffs off and opened the doors, and people are just sitting there. The majority of them, at least. But the only choice you have is, it's not the right, it's not the left, it's not this guy, that lady, this one, that one, vote for this or this option, or how's your opinion on that, or do you accept, or are you this person, or what are you? Is to not say anything. The only choice is to not have a choice, is to not choose, is to refuse to choose, is to reject the choices that you're given. That's the choice. Either one you do, you get slapped with one hand or slapped with the other hand. That's it. And no one wants to get slapped unless you're a sadist. And if you're a sadist, you're the one making the rules, okay? You're not the one getting slapped. That's the whole point. All right? You're not in this situation, okay? Maybe in the back room you're slapping each other around because it's fun. But you're not the one out here getting slapped by the rule book, okay? You're making the rules if you're a sadist. The only choice out here, each choice leads to getting slapped. Nobody wants it, so those aren't choices. They're illusions. It's a trick. It's a dialectic trick. The only choice is to not choose, is to not press the button. Literally, like, press one button or another button. One button punches you in the face, one button kicks you in the nether regions, okay? Neither of those are options. The button to press, the choice that is your free will of what you want, is to not pick a button. That's literally how the whole system works, and it is tricking people for about 2,000 years now. It is literally tricking people for thousands of years. Thousands of years. All you have to do is not pick. That's it. That's all you have to do. Not pick. Do not, door 1, door 2. That's a bottomless pit. That's a freaking hallway on fire. Pick one. Don't pick a door. Make a door. Pick door 3 that they didn't mention and go out it and leave. Leave the situation. Back out the door you came. That's the answer. Strangest thing, but that's what it is. And all the people that are like, this kid's crazy, whatever, they're going to go pick something, get slapped and punched and lit on fire. And that's how it works, and that's how they know it deep down subconsciously, and that's why they're not them. They're not the ones telling me they don't believe I'm crazy, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? I'm not really talking about people saying I'm crazy, but that this idea of going against, not society, but against the grain is not acceptable, blah, blah, blah. They're not saying that. Something is saying that through them. That's the whole point that this is all about. And then ultimately, you know, if they leave this plane, they'll realize that they weren't in control and there's no them. And that's like that's how the afterlife thing got all entangled up with this. And it's really, really weird, because it's basically like we're in a system that's designed for this, full of automatons or self-aware people, and the self-aware people are like, what was going on? And the automatons are like, this is great. Man, look over there. It's on fire and people are starving to death. Wow, this is wonderful. And so it's weird. It's creepy. It's freaky. And yeah, there are other planes, versions of Earths, and that was what we discussed, and but they can't let anybody that is from this plane there unless they denounce this place. If you don't denounce this system, then you like a spiritual enslavement, genetic degradation, eugenics, mind control, rape, sacrifice, molestation, war machine, soul-stealing, corruption-based, deception, fraudulent title, legal name system, then you support it. And if you support it, they're not going to let you over there. That's the whole point. You're not going to leave. You're not going to be able to leave on your own esteem, your own power, your own energy, and they're not going to sit there and give you a friggin' hand up so you can come do the same thing over there. It's about self-control, and everyone has to prove themselves. That's what this is all about. Last thing I'm going to say, this energy shows that I have like 3 weeks of things that I need to talk about, but I don't know how to begin to talk about it. The timelines and the Mandela effect, because Mandela relates to the CERN device, and all of this is supposed to be, I was told it would be released in 2020, that there were going to be more occurrences and to talk about as far as the time programs, but you know, I don't even know what to think with that. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say, basically, and this is another thing, is what I started with this, is that it's kind of like we're condemning people, it's condemnation when we're out here, because if one of us If an operative, a whistleblower, a researcher, a scientist, like a journalist, reporter, insider, an agent from one of the agencies, whatever it is, if anyone tells you, yo, I was involved, I saw this stuff, I seen it happening with my own eyes, it is happening, you're in danger, your children are in danger, this country, your people, the whole world is in danger, and it is happening, and it's based upon corruption, it's based upon crimes that we don't have literal words to describe, basically the abuse, the enslavement, the human trafficking, the child trafficking, the monetary scheme and funds that is to the point where they just burn money because they can't let anyone know they make hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even they said 100,000 times the amount of money that they need to run a country from taxes and all that alone. They just have to find ways to throw it out. Now you know. Someone told you, if anyone told you, now you know, you do not have a right to pretend you do not know. You do not have that right. I'm repeating myself. You no longer have a right to claim you don't know this is going on. That right is no longer one of your luxuries, and the honest truth, it never was. Because before this, if it was your luxury to do that, well then you were just going to get sucked into a supercomputer system and used as fuel. Anyway, so you never had a right. But now it's proven that someone tried to, and from these programs, from these situations, they branched out through time and space, and finally you stumbled upon this video, or the texts, or me, or any one of these other people, okay, and now you were informed, and you do not have a choice to say you didn't know. That's the most serious aspect of this, because we're condemning you. And that's not a pretty point, but the point is, regardless of whether we're here or not, it would have been everybody. And the few people that said, you know what, I'm not taking this, and just walked off into the woods or whatever and lived off the grid, there's a bunch of people doing it, and some of the people are literally like living in caves and stuff, and some of them are like businessmen that sold other stuff, and it's like you can see their interviews and stories and stuff like that. It's real crazy. It's real weird in a good way though. That guy's gonna get accepted into the other place when he leaves. Okay, he's gonna go there. That's how hard it is to get there. Okay, you've heard that before. That's the whole point. So regardless whether we came to condemn you because now you don't have a choice to say you didn't know, you didn't have a choice anyway. If you didn't go with that guy does and live where he does, where he lives or does, and does what he does, or do what he does. Excuse me here. And the guy, this one business guy I'm talking of and thinking of, he literally like lives in a trash cave that he like built out of trash, and I don't know, he like eats animals and roadkill and like burns over fire. So that guy's not a part of the system. No one's gonna come, and he's not gonna get brought up on a higher dimensional tribunal, and they're gonna try him and say, how did you reject this system, and how were you truly aware and of a souled being? They already know, because no friggin' automaton is gonna eat roadkill to get away from this shit. Okay. The first time I cursed in this whole video, but that's the point. And no souled being, self-aware individual is going to overlook somebody spilling the beans, or the fact that the wars are happening, the finances are being ruined, and it's a joke. We have 96% of a value to a dollar today compared to what it was in 1913. Are you kidding me? Do you understand how that makes sense? You have 4 cents to the dollar now? By accident? And we expanded and exploded in infrastructure? Where did all the trillions of dollars go? They're wasting it. They're using it for themselves. Money is a game for them. They're trying to squeeze this place until there's nothing left. That's the whole point. That's what they do. So if you're ignoring that, a souled being, a self-aware individual, doesn't ignore that. And then you hear there's sacrifice, there's child rape, kidnapping that is for a child, and human trafficking ring through these elite systems. And you hear that, and you see there's a video I just posted on the blog, and might even have to post a portion on the channel of a Dutch banker spilling the beans. And you've had plenty of people come out and say the Illuminati wife, or basically these not many people put their names to it and their faces to it, but these Illuminati insiders, or whatever you want to call them. Illuminati is a scapegoat name. It doesn't even mean anything. But you had them coming out saying this is what's going on. It's human trafficking. But now you have these people coming out, like this banker. You go check the video. Dutch banker, real big money, and I have it as reveals a child sacrifice cult. You have these people talking to you, and some of these operatives, these whistleblowers, these survivors, cult survivors,
Fiona, I think Bartlett. There's plenty of other people. All right, there's people coming out on friggin' Maury and like in Oprah in like the '90s. All right, in the early '90s, early '80s, or late '80s. All right, and then you have people in the all over the infrastructure, all over the industry. I mean, in every group, every from fame, celebrity to private sector to military to religious to everything, saying, yeah, we kind of worship these beings because we have power to do anything. Are you gonna stop us? Are you gonna vote us to stop doing that? Well, good luck. And you're ignoring it? Not allowed. The person that does that gets the same effect as the guy that did it to 1,000 kids. You might not want to hear that, but look, here's another. I got this from another video, but some people will know if they're paying attention, and maybe it'll become the time to begin to talk about all that, because a lot of people are getting involved in this, and some of the celebrities that are willing to basically do that sacrifice thing where it's like, fame, power, rich, could do this, or I could suffer in order to tell the truth, okay, and get labeled a psychopath and get an injection when they're not paying attention that basically starts to deteriorate your brain and makes you crazy. And I heard they get it anyway. This is the guy that gives them the injections and gave it to the operatives when we're all kids, so we know what we're up against, or so we go effing retarded. But basically, the story of it's like a biblical story where somebody is paid to perform a task, whatever it is. They each get a coin. The guys at the end of the day that get there at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, right before the sun goes down, they get a gold coin just as much as the guys that were there from 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 11, whatever you want to look at it as. All right. The point that I'm making here is that the guys who have been doing this to women, children, kids, male, like slave labor, as the men are used for slave labor, of any kind, music, whatever it is, monetary, even sexual, the guy that's been doing it for 1,000 years, all right, he's going to get the same as the guy that started doing it yesterday. Same thing. And the people who permit it and look the other way and pretend it's all right, it's not, whatever, in the face of all this going on, they get it the same as the guy that's been doing it for 1,000 years. This is what it is. In the same sense, if you turn away, and in the last second, you, with your heart, tell on the shit and believe that it has to come to an end and stand up for humanity, and stand up for what's right, and liberation, and free will, and truth, and compassion, and harmony, and knowledge, and self-awareness, okay, and creativity, if you do it in the last minute, then you get the same as the guy that's never even batted an eyelid at this stuff and lived in a freaking cave eating roadkill for 50 years of his life, alright? You get the same freedom. You get accepted up. That's how it works. They have the technology to heal DNA, heal memories, heal the mind, do all that. But they don't have technology that abridges free will. I mean, they do, but why would they do that? Force you to be good-hearted? That's not possible. It doesn't work. It doesn't even make sense. All right. But that's the story. That's the gist of it. That's a whole bunch that I want to say, and a whole bunch more, and a page out of a book of what I really have to talk about this whole system. That's also been on my mind a lot lately. You can see with the energy that is coming out with, because a lot of people are taking it as a joke in a game, and I realize now the reality of the situation. If you accept that, then it's going to be your soul. That's what's going to happen, and I've seen it. People come back and they're different. And unless something magical happens where they are targeted by the support groups, okay, that soul is probably not going to come back. And they're going to stay that way in this place, and this place is going to close out. And from an eternal standpoint, it will look like that's how it's always been, and no one will ever be able to change that, because it'll be forever. So don't let them trick you. Don't look the other way. You don't have to stare at it. You don't have to eat roadkill. You don't have to go live in a cage. Or a cave, excuse me. You're already in the cage. Regardless of whether it's a prison planet or a school system, the point is this is happening, and right now something is changing, and you have an opportunity to assist in this change and assist in the liberation of your species. And like I said in a comment to another guy, if this isn't assisting your species because you're from another species, a hybrid, a brain-chipped clone, whatever you want to look at it as, and you're just like, well, this is our run, this is our fun time, well then you already know what's coming to you anyway, and it's a lot worse than what's coming to the people who basically turn away and tell on themselves and
try to expose a system to protect more people. That's all I really can say. I got a lot more to say. It's not all I got to say, but it's all I really can say, and it's pushing the hour limit here. So thank you for listening. For those that do listen, I'll probably be able to make a coherent, at least, more relatively coherent video now, more focused, because I felt this is kind of like what I had to get off my chest and for days, and I did not know how to get that out, but I think you know now. And watch the new video of this whistleblower. Basically, he mentions a few things, a few key words there, as far as there's been things going on, and I'm not talking about the dark stuff. We know about that, and I've informed you. There's a movement, and we're seeing where that's going to go now. It doesn't matter what people do in politics. It doesn't matter what people do in there. If the hammer's coming down, they're going to be like, yeah, vote for me, and they're not gonna stop and be like, oh, it's over, everybody, oh, protect us. Then that's not gonna work. So they're gonna keep dancing their charades, tap dancing until the very end. All right, thank you.